Hello everyone, nubkeks here, welcome back to Nub Raids, and in today's video I've got some really exciting news because we now have the info on the champion that is going to be next in the daily login rewards, and no, it's not Ultimate Death Knight, so who knows what's happening with him. Probably gonna be the next fusion, I'm guessing, but yeah, hopefully we'll hear more about that during the week. Who knows exactly what's gonna happen. But obviously, if you've been going through your daily login rewards, you know, once you get to this 271 plus days, you start going through a whole bunch of different champions like Arix, and etc. etc. Lady Arix has been the most recent one until now. There's a few people that will be ahead of me in terms of these days and are going to be getting her within the next few days. Well, good news is when you grab her, you complete her potentially in the next week or two. This new legendary is going to be showing up, and it is a legendary coming up next time. So here we go, guys. Arix is a legendary HP champion of Magic Affinity from Knights Revenant faction. Thanks to Arix's skill set, should be useful both in PvE and PvP content. This is the official blurb from Plarium, by the way. We'll take a look in her kit, and I'll tell you what I think, too. This champion's expertise is to deal a great amount of damage while saving and supporting your team. With the help of A1, Arix attacks all enemies, removes one random buff from each attacked enemy. The A2 is also an AoE attack, gives Arix a chance to place stun on enemies. She will transfer a random debuff from herself to enemies who receive stun from this skill. With A3, she places ally protection on all allies except for herself and gives herself a counterattack buff. Her passive skill allows her to boost her turn meter each time an ally inflicts a critical hit, and heals herself each time an enemy inflicts a critical hit. She'll appear in the game tomorrow. Players will be able to see the fragments of this champion in their daily login rewards lineup starting July 30th. 30th. I don't know. Why is that a hard word to say? That doesn't make any sense. Please note, you won't be able to summon Arix from Sacred Shards, so you cannot get this champ from Sacred Shards, but you can get her from Ancient Shards. So you could potentially pull her early, bearing in mind, you're getting her really late into the game. You got to be playing the game for a long time to actually get this champion, but you can pull her from Ancient Shards. So you have to bear that in mind. How good is she going to be for newer players? How good is she going to be when you actually get her from the daily login rewards? And of course, it's still 4 months away of collecting this stuff, right? Bear that in mind too. So here she is. Honestly, she looks pretty cool, I think. You know, typical sort of knightly look, but obviously dead with the Knights Revenant. I like the shadowy effects on her sword, this sort of shadowy halo made out of a chain. Very cool. I like the look. Yeah, looks good. Looks very good. So her A1, Deathly Arts, AoE attack, 25% chance of removing a random buff from each target. I'm guessing this probably bucks up to 40%. Certainly the interesting thing for me about this champion is the idea that she might actually put out some pretty decent damage. That, I think, is definitely the hope, based off of this, basically, that she can do a great amount of damage while saving and supporting your team. So I'm interested to see exactly what's that going to break down to. How hard will she hit? I think a lot of it depends on that. But if this is a good damaging AoE A1, she could pump out a reasonable amount of damage with it. I think Deliana is a good comparison, where Deliana actually puts out a lot of damage over time. She actually does quite a good chunk of damage. It's a great asset to your team. We'll see if she can do it. 40% chance to remove a random buff. It's a decent A1. It's not amazing, but it's pretty useful. It's pretty decent. And like Doom Tower might be okay in Arena. Would be good for Hydra. Thorn Chain Malison is her A2. 4-turn cooldown. Probably bucks to 3 turns. Attacks all enemies. 50% chance of placing stun for 1 turn. Transfers a random debuff from this champion to targets that receive stun debuffs from this skill. I'm guessing, again, this probably books to a 75% chance to stun, and it probably books to a 3-turn cooldown. So what we have here is an AoE attack, 3-turn cooldown with a 75% chance to stun. It's not amazing, really, at all. It's quite average. I mean, if you look at Ragash, or there was that new dwarf guy as well, added in the last patch, Brassclad, I think. We had 2 champions there with AoE stuns on 3-turn cooldowns that were 100%. This 75% potential chance to do an AoE stun, it's a decent move. It's okay, but it's not blowing your socks off, right? Like, for example, she's not going to be a reliable AoE stun champion for the Spider Dungeon or something like that. It's not going to be reliable. Then this transferring random debuff to targets that receive the stun. This one is really weird again as well. That seems quite a weak effect. I don't know. What do you guys like? What sort of debuffs can you think of? Like, what would be good? Just seems weird. Like they're gonna be stunned, so like decreased attack or none of that stuff's gonna be that useful. Obviously, she has to actually attack, so you can't transfer any crowd control. I guess you could throw a fear or a true fear over, but they're gonna be stunned, so they're gonna be missing their turn anyway. Seems a bit funky, doesn't seem that useful, and it's a random debuff. I just don't see where that's ever going to be much good. Like, it might do something randomly good in Arena, but it's pretty underwhelming if you ask me. So it really, again, depends on, does she hit hard? If she hits hard, then okay, we might be talking, you know, for Doom Tower, waves and stuff like that. Hard-hitting AoE champion who's very, very tanky. That could be good. And throwing out some CC, throwing some of those debuffs back, could be good there. We shall see, though. Warped Guidance, then. 5-turn cooldown. Probably books to 4 turns is what they usually do with these types of skills. Puts ally protection on all allies except this champion for 2 turns, and places counterattack on this champion for 2 turns. Like, the biggest problem with her, the weird way that ally protection works, not the biggest problem, one of the few problems with her. Ally protection, your crit damage stat increases the damage you take from the stuff that you prevent with ally protection. It's really weird. But basically, the damage that you take from ally protection, if it's a crit, scales off of your crit damage. So if you build her to hit hard, she's going to die really fast from this ally protection, potentially. And she doesn't have anything to keep her alive, at least in these active skills, right? Okay, sure, she's going to transfer 1 random debuff away. I don't know, maybe she can transfer off multiple random debuffs at a time, a different one to each target. I'm not sure. Seems like it's just going to be 1 from her and put it on all the enemies that were stunned. So she doesn't have much to keep her alive. The counterattack is decent, but yeah, fairly underwhelming so far, I would say. Her passive's not bad though. Cynical. Fills her turn meter by 5% each time an ally inflicts a critical hit. Now that is what makes me kind of excited by this. I think that is actually a really good ability. Then she also has this, heals this champion by 5% of their max HP each time an enemy inflicts a critical hit. Again, that seems just weird to me. I don't know where that's going to be good. How is that going to be useful? In Doom Tower waves, most of the time they're going to be controlled and they're not going to crit that often in PvE. Like, enemies in PvE just don't crit you all that often. And then in PvP, it's such a small heal. Like, the crits are typically one-shotting your team, so I don't really see that being very good. I do think this seems like a lot of turn meter, though. Whenever you crit, I'm thinking Doom Tower waves. That's a lot of turn meter. She could really rip through her turns pretty quickly, which is kind of cool. But yeah, we'll see. What do you guys think of Arix? Honestly, my opinion, she doesn't seem great. Like, for when you're getting her as a login champion, she seems actually pretty bad, I would say. Like, I just don't see you using her. She's going to be good for Faction War, so maybe if you want to build a faster team for Knights Revenant, one of the more annoying factions, I would say, to do, with the Valkyries in Wave 2. She's going to help with that, right? She can AoE stun them. She can rip off their counterattack potentially. Probably pretty good damage getting through the waves. Help you stay alive against the boss. I think she'll be good for that. She'll definitely be good for that. And her passive's going to be decent there too. So yeah, for Faction War, it's great. But is it worth building a champion? It's certainly not, in my opinion, really worth booking a champion. Unless you're super late game and you got nothing else to use your books on. It doesn't seem that useful elsewhere. If you got her from an ancient shard earlier in the game, okay, I think she could be quite all right if you got her earlier in the game. Going through Doom Tower stuff, that AoE with the buff strip, the AoE with the stun, I think it's all right. And her passive with the turn meter, I think she could be actually pretty all right. Throwing her into a stun type of team, you know, throwing her in with Seal of the Drakes, with Vizix when you get Vizix, Archmage Helmet, Drexthar perhaps. Throw all these champions in together, it's going to be a pretty decent team. Deliana works well there too, but I don't know. I'm not really impressed by it, to be honest. Not really impressed. She seems fairly average, I would say. My take is she's pretty much a filler champion, is my vibe. But of course, I could be wrong. If you see something really cool that she could do, let me know. But yeah, I think she just seems pretty decent. We'll see if she hits hard. I mean, if she hits really hard, if she is a big nuker, she's going to need accuracy, so she's not going to hit crazy, crazy hard, right? You do want her to stun. You do want her to remove those debuffs. So I think you probably still build her with accuracy, but maybe, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Guys, let me know what you think. This is Arix, though. For me, seems pretty meh. Pretty meh. But yeah, early game should be good, and obviously early game should really help you get Knights Revenant down, which is quite helpful. But yeah. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.